Recording in progress.
This segment is all about planning to sell your business in today's economy. Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial, and the segment's brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get published to educate consumers, lead their fields, and to leave a legacy. Joining me on this segment is Simon Fallows. He's the founder of Freedom for Founders. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark.
Simon, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically let us know who are the types of clients that you serve.
Yeah, I'm a licensed business broker that became a certified exit planner and through EPI in the US and working with clients that are $1 million and less in revenue. And as I came to learn through my exit planning program and through the course at EPI, that's 95% of business owners. They have a business that is under 1 million in value, and they're very underserved as it relates to understanding how they can properly prepare their business for exit.
So we know business owners are great at growth, but how much do they know about selling the business or even preparing it? What do business owners feel is going to be their biggest challenge?
Well, that's a loaded question. One, there's very little education. One in personal finance, right? I mean, very few people come out of school with personal finance. Very few business owners understand their own financials and spend any time understanding what drives value in their business. And it's more than just, of course, increasing revenue. And certainly profitability is key. But that's not what makes a business valuable most of the time. It's the goodwill in the business. And it's what's in the way of in relationship to a business being transferable. 80% of the time, there's too much owner dependency, too much customer concentration. There's lots of issues within the context of a business that makes it untransferable. And a business owner who thinks there's a lot of value trapped up in their business, or it's their single biggest asset, is then shocked when they come to a business broker to find out that the valuation they thought they'd get is very little to nothing.
Let's unpack that a little bit. Perhaps tell us a little bit about like your methodologies there at Freedom for Founders.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, what do you do? Give us a 10,000-foot view of how you help these business owners.
Yeah, it's really about, I frame it up in relationship to exit readiness. I say to business owners that the best time to have your exit strategy is certainly when you started the business. But if you're in the middle of your business, no matter what stage of life cycle you're in, it is the best exit strategy is the best business strategy. You know, a lot of consultants will come into the business and say, what are your goals? What's your vision for the business? I personalize that because most of these business owners, it's the business and their personal life are intertwined. They're in fact lifestyle businesses, and very few run their businesses as an investment. And so if you don't step back and look at your business for an investment, then for most owners, it's a tax planning strategy or a tax avoidance strategy. And that creates the issue. It relates to when it comes to selling the business. When there's too many personal expenses that are being driven through the business, this is often the case to lower their tax burden, the business isn't transferable. And so that's the education that comes out of preparing them in a program called Exit Readiness, where they understand how they've used the business, how they've treated it, and then what are the things they need to do to increase the value of the business. And that is the multiple they're going to receive on exit.
A fascinating insight is when you mention, hey, the proper time to start exit planning is like at the beginning of the business, and because it's just good business principles, like they should have been doing this all along. So to your point, let's say they didn't get this all done in the beginning. How much time should people allow? What's the right amount of time to allot to this preparation?
Yeah. For me, it's 8 hours of really to truly understand the business, understand the interdependencies for the owner, right? If there's too much owner dependency, to really assess the business properly, I say you need at least 4 or 5 hours. And I mean, you could do that with somebody like me. You can do it with your accountant. And I'll encourage an owner, if they've got a trusted relationship with an advisor, to sit down and pay the bill. You know, unfortunately, there are a lot of $1 million to $5 million businesses, $100,000 businesses. They can't afford the larger firms. We know who they are, PwC, KPMG. They've got consultancies. So what do they need to do? It's spend some time with a core advisor, a chief advisor, and really talk about business value and business valuation from the perspective of goodwill, transferability, not just the profit the business is making, but how it's making that money. And far too many owners have all their eggs in one customer basket. I say if 20% or more of your business is in one customer, then there's a problem. And so you've got to kind of do that assessment. And that takes a bit of time. Out of it, I'll tell you, 80% of businesses that I interview aren't ready to sell. It's a bad decision. And the reason they want to sell is probably because there's some form of triggering event. They're being forced to do it. That's the worst time to want to put your business up for sale. Typically 2 to 5 years, to answer your question. It's what's required once you understand what you need to do to get ready, then the things you have to do to put in place to save tax, to get the most value out of the business, to make sure it's transferable, 2 to 5 years.
Simon, what's the climate like today, especially like post-pandemic? Is it a good time to sell a business, or is there a such thing as a good or a bad time to sell a business?
Well, there's absolutely a good or bad time. I think timing in the marketplace is everything when you want to sell the business. And timing is usually never in a line. So an owner isn't ready, but the market is ready. There's always a disalignment, typically in relationship to a business owner wanting to sell. Timing right now in the market is good, believe it or not. Now, good strategically. There are, depending on who you're talking to and what industry you're in, certainly from a financial buyer's perspective, money's tight, right? The banks are tightening up, interest rates are high. And so if you've got a smaller business, let's say, and a lot of them are under $500,000 in value, then what the owner can expect is a vendor take back, where you're getting a loan from the seller. So you might only be able to invest $50,000 or $100,000 right now. And the seller's going to have to accept a vendor take back or a loan to the tune of $100,000 a year for 3 years. That's typical. And just increase that based on your business valuation. If you're selling for $1 million, you might get 100,000 or 200,000 cash, and the rest in the form of a loan from the vendor, from the seller. And that's the typical climate we find ourselves in right now, where the buyer and the seller really have to work together if there's not a lot of financing options. To finish, if your business is making 300,000, 350 plus, I say the sweet spot is 500,000. We're opening your business up to equity, private equity, and there's a lot of private equity money out there in the market. There is a lot of money trapped that these private equity firms need to spend. And so, but there's very few owners that are making 500,000 clean to $1 million on the bottom line. And that's what these private equity firms are looking for. There is cash, and they're willing to pay higher multiples. And that's coming out of COVID, where you've got a lot of businesses now and a lot of opportunities to roll up various industries into one larger conglomerate across the US.
Simon, what inspired you to get into this field and help business owners with their exit and selling their businesses? How did you get started?
Yeah, well, doing it myself, I've been a lifelong serial entrepreneur. I've both started companies and then spun off or sold businesses. And in 2012, I had a big exit of my own. And working with owners, I'd step into the boardroom as an interim executive, an investor. And I found that within a couple months, or certainly within a year, I was getting friction from the owner. They didn't want to take on additional risk. They didn't want to fire their brother or brother-in-law who's chief of sales and wonder why sales aren't growing, right? So we ran into this friction, and I realized that there was no goal. I mean, they might have a company vision, but they didn't have a personal vision. Why did you start the business in the first place? Was it to transition internally to family members? Is it a lifelong legacy for you, family transition? Or is it an outside exit? Are you trying to grow to capitalize the business and to then get a good return? And I said, that's kind of where I started. You only got one or two decisions. You sell the business internally and you get on a track to do that for the next 4 to 5 years, or you sell it externally. But you have to make that decision first, and you have to let that decision then percolate and make decisions out of that one decision for the next, I say, 2 to 5 years, for you really to get the value out of the business that you want, or the transferability to family or friends.
Before I ask you my last question, in regards to preparing your business for sale today in this economy, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is really important to share for business owners considering selling today?
I think the number one message I'm trying to get across to a lot of owners: you're good at what you do, right? A lot of them are operating these businesses that are family or interrelated, they're lifestyle businesses, And I would say, could you just stop for a moment and think of it from an investment perspective? Would, you know, when a business owner says to me, I want to sell my business for $1 million, I'll ask them, would you buy your business for $1 million cash? And they often say, no, I wouldn't. Why not? That's the start of the conversation. That's looking at your business from an investment perspective. Step back, have that honest discovery with yourself, with your family, with your spouse that perhaps wants to travel. They want to do something different, but you're so caught up in the day-to-day operation of the business, treating it like a lifestyle, so intertwined. My number one advice is like, step back, look at it from an investment perspective. It starts to change your mindset in relationship to how you might want to continue to run the business and what you might want to do with it in the future.
Sage advice for
Yeah.
business owners listening right now who would love to speak with you and perhaps
Sure.
get your help. How can
Yeah.
they find you, connect with you, and learn more from you?
Yeah. Freedomforfounders.com is the website. If we go to my LinkedIn profile at Simon Fallows, F is in Frank, Allows, you'll find me there, and lots of content and direction to provide real advice as it relates to some next steps. And from there, I schedule 15-minute calls, and I do that frequently every day with any owner that wants some key advice that might want to move further into understanding if their business is ready for sale.
This has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you so much.
That was Simon Fallows, founder of Freedom for Founders. And the segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to lead their fields, educate consumers, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.